You can feel it happening. People who bought homes just a few years ago when money was cheap are starting to struggle. Mortgage renewals are coming due, payments are doubling, even though interest rates have come down. Canada's housing agency just confirmed what everyone's been whispering. Delinquencies and arrears are climbing. And it's not a crash, not yet. We're not seeing massive crashes yet, but the cracks are starting to show. And when CMHC says they're monitoring it closely, that's bureaucratic language for things are getting worse. About 2 million mortgages across Canada are coming up for renewal between now and 2026. And around 60% of all mortgages in the country will renew at much higher rates. Now, most of these were signed during the pandemic, people locking in around 1.5, 2%. Now they're facing renewals at higher rates. And for some households, it's hundreds or even thousands every single month. And the hardest hit right now, Toronto condo owners. A lot of people jumped in during the pandemic because condos looked like the affordable solution. Developers were cranking them out. Interest rates were dirt cheap. Everyone thought the market could only ever go up. And maybe that was the warning sign that things would eventually turn. So fast forward to 2025, those same people are renewing into a completely different world. Higher rates, rising unemployment, softening condo market, worse economic conditions week after week. And this isn't just Toronto. Vancouver and Montreal are also feeling the same thing too. But Toronto is really the epicenter of what's happening, and especially the people who bought pre-construction units in 2020 and 2021. The timing couldn't have been worse for these people. Now, what's really interesting is when people are kind of saying about this whole thing, you'll see there's really a sense of frustration, not panic, but a quiet realization that the system itself is breaking. And people are saying if you lose your job today, you're done. And it seems to be the case. If you have a job right now and you have a large mortgage and you lose your job, it's a really bleak scenario. You won't qualify again. And with unemployment creeping towards 10%, it's not hard to imagine how this sort of spreads from here. And the worst part is the same corporations that are laying people off are also the ones buying homes after foreclosure. They're cutting local jobs and then turning around to buy the real estate that these workers can no longer afford. Now, I wouldn't say that's a conspiracy. That's kind of how our system runs and how it's designed. People forget how we got here. For years, housing prices went up 10, 20% every single year. Nobody complained when their home value doubled, right? We didn't see this outrage when things went up. Of course, people were saying housing is overpriced, but the people who owned real estate felt rich when prices were going up. But now, since prices have started to fall and payments are rising, it's suddenly a housing crisis. And it feels like the media has been pushing fear into people more and more. Nobody cared when it was easy money, but now that the tide's going out, we're going to see who was swimming naked. And the truth is, a lot of these mortgages were based on creative financing, let's call it. So fake income documents, inflated self-employment numbers, whatever it took to qualify, right? Mortgage fraud. And when you remove cheap credit, the whole foundation starts shaking. And this isn't going to be a sudden crash. I think this is really going to be a slow, grinding correction. People will fight to hang on, cut expenses, maybe even borrow from friends or family, take on more debt, but eventually something has to give. And as these renewals keep rolling in, more forced sales will most likely hit the market and more power of sales will hit the market. Developers will continue to slow down because nobody wants to build into this uncertainty. And ironically, that means less new housing supply later on. So we have this big question mark in the future where if we have a lot of less housing supply, what does that mean for prices? It probably means they'll go up. Because if we have less supply in the future, we're going to run into a situation where there's just not enough houses for people, right? Especially if we keep adding to our population. And that could push prices back up, especially if interest rates really go down. And again, that's the cycle. Boom, bust, tighten supply, boom again. Now, here's my really honest take about this, and it might not be very popular, but this is the phase of the market that separates the emotional from the disciplined. If you are someone who's an experienced investor or a homeowner who kept things conservative, this is your time to watch, learn, and be very patient, right? Opportunities always show up quietly in the middle of this kind of chaos, right? And that's only if you want, let's say, invest in real estate. Now, there's even just that whole concept of investing in real estate, people have a lot of opinions on, right? People say real estate, housing shouldn't be an investment. The reality is housing is the largest asset class on the planet, right? I think bonds and real estate are the largest asset classes. So naturally, real estate is something that people will always invest in, right? It requires capital to build, so people will always invest in it, buy more than just, let's say, their home, right? And some people just invest in real estate and they don't own a home. That's also a case. But for regular Canadians, this is a tough thing to watch because the people getting hit hardest right now aren't really those speculators. I mean, they are getting decimated, but it's the ones who did everything right and just bought at the wrong time. They, let's say, moved in and closed on February 2022. They saved up, they bought a home, made their payment, and now they're getting squeezed by forces that are way beyond their control. Meanwhile, the same institutions that fueled this bubble will likely get bailed out again. And there's no doubt it'll happen. And that's the part that's really hardest to swallow about this. And maybe this whole correction forces a shift in how we see housing, not as a lottery ticket, but really more like a place to live, right? And if you do invest in real estate, the numbers should work. Everything should pencil out. You should not buy something mainly because you just think the price is going to go up. You have to look at all the other numbers, right? Are you getting it under, let's say, what it used to be worth? What are the rents paying? You have to look at everything instead of just speculating about price in the future. And I think these things will just be healthier for the market overall. Let me know what you guys think of that. And if you agree or disagree, of course, let me know in the comments.